Hello. I'm fashionably late to my own stream, as per usual. Um, let's make sure that you can hear me. Yeah, it does not look like I'm muted. Wow. Isn't that like the second time in a row? Um, a second time in a row that I did not mute myself right off the bat of the start of the stream. That's wild. I'm like so proud of myself. Oh my God. Yeah. So I was supposed to record the first episode of my new show yesterday. It didn't happen because Kyiv was flooded. I don't know if you've seen the videos and the images online, but remember like a little while back, New York was like flooded because there were rains for 3 days straight. And so there were like cars floating and all that lovely stuff. So yeah, that happened to Kyiv because, civilian infrastructure, I guess, is an issue around the world. And people don't know how to freaking build things. And that's okay. But anyways, I could not get to the studio to record the episode because everything was flooded. And that was fire. And well, actually, no, it wasn't fire because that's the opposite of flooded. So yeah, it was flooded. I mean, I did not see the floods themselves, but basically like it took me 45 minutes to get a taxi. And when the taxi arrived and was like, oh, we're going there. Oh no, we can't go there because the underpass is like basically flooded. So we're not going to get there. And I was like, that's fantastic. So I was supposed to be recording yesterday and tomorrow, and now I'm just recording tomorrow, and hopefully that'll go better. I really hope there are not going to be any any more surprises on the way. The reason why I'm going live earlier today is because even though I it's not like early tomorrow, I still kind of want to like try and go to bed earlier, or at least start unwinding earlier. Oh my gosh. Hi Juju. Hi Anthony. Hi Demon Orb. Hi Ed. Hi Carolyn. Hi Frank. Hi Nick. Hi Mark. Hi Niels. Hi Sakai. Good to see you. Hi Prexis and hi Grumpy. Sure you will. Okay, listen, don't discourage me. Hi Ozzy. Good morning. A couple of like random things. So I spoke about it on Discord, but so I know that quite a few Ukrainian YouTubers are asked about Amazon wish lists, and then they're like, we don't have Amazon. So Nova Poshta actually recently launched a service where you can in fact shop on Amazon and send it to their warehouse in New Jersey, and then they send it to you to like your branch. So if you know Ukrainian YouTubers that were trying to figure out Amazon wish lists, basically they register their like thing with Nova Poshta, and then they can just send it to Nova Poshta, and Nova Poshta sends it to them to Ukraine. I'm not sure, like I know that there is still this thing where, so basically in Ukraine, if something is over 150 euros, you're going to have to pay tax on it. So I do suggest that, people stick to like under 150 type of wish list items. Also, if they contain lithium ion batteries, they're going to be shipped by sea, I believe. So it's going to take a little while longer, but that's okay. I mean, hey, like that is a way to have an Amazon wish list if you live in Ukraine, which I find very cool. So if you hear of Ukrainian YouTubers who've been trying to figure it out, or you have asked a Ukrainian YouTuber about an Amazon wish list and they're like, oh, we can't have one. I guess we can now. It's just that you have to register. So they only do it in the US. They don't do it in England, oddly. So although I should check, because I don't know why they wouldn't. But anyways, you just basically register with them. You have like a PO box at their New Jersey facility, or like a room at their New Jersey facility, and and you just put it in in the Amazon wish list as like the address, and they send it there, and then in turn that gets sent to you. But obviously, if you were to like send something to an American or an English person from their Amazon wish list, that would come to them within like 2-3 days. This will be 2-3 weeks. So, but it works, or at least I don't know if it works because it should work. I haven't like tried it out in a sense that like, my wish list used to be, I used to be in the US with my US address, and then I moved, and then I was just like, well, this is it. And I just heard about it recently, and I was curious to see how it works. And I thought that it was cool because it's a way for Ukrainian YouTubers to have Amazon wish lists. Anyways, hi Frost. Hi Kat. Amazon lately for me has been a crazy adventure. Oh, was it? You don't say. Usually posting things for me is generally a crazy adventure. Hi Karen. Hi Brendy. Hi Leathercat. Hi Dawn, and hi James. So what else? In the past couple of days, not much has really changed. I don't know. I've been trying to work. I've been trying to get a lot of things done. I've been trying to post a video at least every day on TikTok. Some of them I don't repost on Instagram because, so here is one thing that I want to mention. There are a couple of Ukrainians in Israel that follow me on Instagram that are very vocal, and any single time that that I have posted anything Israel or Gaza concerning, like I get a lot of DMs, and no matter whether it's like positive about Israel or positive about Gaza, there is always like a lot of comments that are not very like nice, and they're very like condescending in my DMs, and like it's largely like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, like blah blah, and like you're right. I'm expressing an opinion, like my own opinion on this. I don't know what I'm talking about, which is why I don't talk about it often. But also like it just discouraged me from wanting to put any sort of like, any sort of information about that on Instagram, because I feel like, I don't know, it's just never a pleasant experience in that sort of way. So I don't put any of I didn't put any of the recent videos up on Instagram. Any news on artillery shells? Yeah, actually, we're going to talk a lot about different things that the different countries pledged yesterday and today because of the G7 summit and the peace conference. I try to only DM survival stuff or something to raise someone's mood. Oh, thanks, Animal, and thank you, Max, and thank you. There was someone before on TikTok. Thank you, Azvuchka. And yeah. Hello, hi. So yeah, lots of boom booms. Yeah, there have been a lot of announcements in the past 2 days, and we're gonna try and go over all of them. There is a lot of information actually to fit into today's live, so I'm going to try and keep the catching up part under 15 minutes. Have new jets arrived in Ukraine yet? Not according to any information that I have heard, but also here's what I'm gonna say. F-16s are going to show up before they're announced. Like they're not going to announce the jets showing up right when they do or before they do, because that's usually the strategy with equipment like that. If something super new arrives to Ukraine that we have been asking for a long time, that's a big deal. They're not going to disclose it until it's been like, I don't know, maybe like 2 weeks to a month afterwards. I will say that the US letting Ukraine strike Russian territory, even just along the Kharkiv border, has been showing significant improvements. For instance, Kharkiv has been shelled way less because Ukraine basically ruined Russia's positions right at the border, and also Russians are now throwing all their air defense from Crimea to Belgorod because they're scared. Now that Ukraine can actually strike Russian territory, there is really that's been a huge improvement, and like strikes on Kharkiv have really not like minimized, but they have become way less frequent, and it gives people in Kharkiv like some breathing room. Don't get it wrong, they're still getting shelled constantly, but not nearly as much as they were before. So that was a very, very, very important step. Okay. So that's that. What else? We haven't had electricity cutoffs. We haven't had electricity cutoffs in a little bit, in a couple of days. I heard that Kyiv has like redone its turn-off schedule to be more favorable to like people and people's homes. And then uh how am I just noticing Yulia is inked? I don't know. What was I talking about? Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. So there haven't been electricity cutoffs as severe. Like there haven't been electricity cutoffs in a couple of days. From what I've heard is that Kyiv sort of redid its scheduling in a way that civilians and like individuals are going to be getting a lot more light than they were, because basically the way that it was done before is that all the businesses and everyone else was getting all the light, and then civilians were basically cut off. And so they kind of like restructured it. I heard winter is going to be dark and cold. Probably, honestly, like it's not looking good for us. But I really don't want to think about it, because I'm gonna have to live through it. So we're just gonna like not mention it. And then also Eddie is asking, are you going to be at Pride this weekend? A group of us are going to focus on more aid. I thought that they canceled Pride this year because it was like dangerous or something like that, because large gathering. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know there was. Where is Pride this week? Oh, Pride Parade is still happening. I thought that that's what was canceled, because there wasn't one last year, and there wasn't going to be one this year, I guess. Good evening from Latvia. Hi. Also, JJH. Hi. Hello. Crimea is Ukraine, Donetsk is Ukraine, Luhansk is Ukraine, Odessa is Ukraine. Yeah, like all of Ukraine is Ukraine. That's very sweet, though. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean by any means. I'm just so preoccupied by this recording tomorrow that I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit in that world in my head. I'm watching just at the same time making a snack. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, also today was my grandma's birthday. She was born in 1941, 9 days before World War II came to Kyiv. And she was born basically, she basically went straight from the maternity ward into a bunker. And she's 83 this year. She is fantastic. How do I am, Slava? And thank you for birthday wishes to my grandma. And she is a fantastic woman, and I really love her. She's very sweet and kind and loving, and I've rarely met as many people that are really just so kind of like well-wishing as well-wishing as she is. Like I don't think she has a mean bone in her body, and she's like a very sensitive little flower type of human being. She's very, she's very loving. She also goes to church every Sunday and puts up a candle for all of us. Putting up a candle for a person in Ukraine basically means you're like, you're doing that for their like health and stuff like that. I was trying for the whole last week, I was trying to figure out what it is that I need to get her for her birthday, because is this the same grandma who got her house in a chess game? No, that's not that one. Not the house, the apartment I grew up in, but that's my mom's mom, and this is my dad's mom's birthday. She's a very sweet person, and I was trying to figure out what to get her for her birthday, and I think my dad and I just arrived at the fact that she needs a vacuum cleaner, and so I will be getting her a vacuum cleaner. And there is like a whole list of requirements of what this vacuum cleaner can and cannot be. Like it can't be one of those like standing vacuums, because they are too heavy for her. It has to be one of those like old school ones with, like the roll around one, sort of like the corded vacuums. And then it needs to have a wet cleaning function because she has rugs everywhere, and so wet rug cleaning. And there was another requirement for the vacuum cleaner that I already forgot. But anyways, this vacuum cleaner requirement list is like longer than my like standards list for men. So there is that. The other grandma that I think Lauren or Veronica were talking about, the grandma that literally won the apartment in which I grew up through a chess game. Um, through a chess game the other requirement was that it has to be like some good brand so it lasts. So it lasts her, because her previous vacuum lasted her 15 years. Lauren, yeah, epic story. So my other grandma, the one that won the apartment in a chess game, she actually is not doing so well emotionally because her business of 30 years basically went bankrupt and she had to close it last month. Well, so she owns the so you know how I always talk about the bakery that my grandma, like I grew up in a bakery and she owned like a little chain of bakeries. So she had a few of them. After 2014, two of them closed. Then I think in 2017 or 18, the other one closed, but she owns the not the building, but the space where the store was. And so she rented it out. But because she's my grandma and she has a business partner, the business partner wanted to rent it out to a chain. So they like actually had a really crappy deal where they're getting way less than they should be in rent for that space from like a supermarket chain that no one even likes. I don't know why there's so many of them. Like it's the most garbage supermarket chain in our city, but whatever. And so this one was kind of working, but like it wasn't really like profiting. It was mostly like eating away at her, like at her money. And so they finally decided to rent it out and like close it. And they rented it out to the same supermarket chain. And again, they're paying them less than they should be paying them. Also, apparently, like their LLC has some debts, so they need to pay that off first, and then they will but at least she will have like stable income every month and she'll know how much money she'll make. So that's, at least there is that. And it's really sad because it's something that she's like invested her like soul into for 30 years. But at the same time, like it's kind of like, I will say, like I don't want to be mean, but it's definitely like partly her fault, because like it used to be like a gourmet grocery store and a bakery, and like the bakery had really good stuff in it, but the interior was shit, and like it was just like very dated and stuff, and she didn't want to like update things, and she didn't want to make them like Instagrammable. And that's kind of like the people with money, right? They're like IT people and people who are like young and stuff. And so she sort of like was catering to the audience that used to have the money for this stuff, which are like people her age. And now the people who can afford to buy things are people that are like my age and work in IT. And so they want a completely different sort of like, it's a completely different market that she doesn't understand at all. And we were like trying to help her, and we were trying to like tell her what to do and what sort of products to bring in. So like it would still be like a high end upscale like grocery store with like unique products, because it's sort of like it started as that, and it was that in like the late 90s, early 2000s, but now it's just sort of like a regular grocery store that's also old and super dated. And so is the bakery. And we were like trying to basically help. But the thing is, like, she doesn't want to do anything because obviously she's like at an age where she doesn't. So she says things like, oh, you want it done, like do it yourself. And we start trying to do it, and then she's like kind of interfering in it, and she doesn't like the ideas, and she like wants to backseat drive everything. And at the end of the day, like you can't do it with her and you can't do it without her. And so it's like it was just impossible, because she like didn't want to do anything, but then when we would do things, she would want to participate in the process and like micromanage everything. And then she would like nix the ideas that were actually the ideas that need to be implemented for this business to like be revamped and stuff. And then there is also her business partner, who is even less understanding of like modern tendencies and stuff like that. And yeah, and so there was no evolution of the store. In fact, it was like, it was sort of like degrading, and I was really sad to watch it kind of like turn into this sad old, like dated place. And then, she didn't want to close it for a very long time, and I understand it because it's like it's her life's work. But she had to, and she did, and now, it is what it is. Hi Chad, good to see you. Hi Cheryl. But yeah, so it is what it is. And she's like very, she calls me, and it's interesting because she used to be the person who would like who like made all the money in our family, and she put me through college, and like she's helped me greatly throughout my entire life. She comes from nothing, and she like built it herself. And now she's like so worried about money and income and all of this stuff that like anytime, like, I don't know, I buy something for myself, she like asks me how much it was, and she's like really scared. She's like, why did you buy that? And I'm like, because I need it. And she like needs me to justify why I needed it, because I don't know, it's just like, all of our it's started to be quite difficult to talk to her about certain things, because I think she's like so worried about our futures now that she like can't really, she hasn't been able to like pick us up if we fall for years now, that she like really wants us to be like okay and well off, right, and stuff. So she's like really anxious about all of these things and asks a lot of questions that are kind of like, a lot. And so I don't know, it's just it's a whole thing. I don't know why we were talking about this. It's because ADHD, and sometimes I hyper focus on something. I started this, topic, and then I just did not stop. Although I should. Anyways, okay. um Probably it's because Russians aren't the only ones living there. What are we talking about? I have a friend who is Ukrainian through her paternal grandfather's parents, who moved to the US in 1917, and their surname was Americanized. She's wanting to reclaim her Ukrainian surname. That's actually really cool. I wonder what the surname is and how it was Americanized. Also, hi Matthew, and hi Cheryl. I think I already said that. Hi K-Bell, and hi Maria. Hi everyone. And Michael says, "Sorry that happened. It's okay. I mean, like, it's life. It's just like, when something like that happens, it's really sad, sort of to. It's really sad, sort of, to like watch it happen. But then you get used to it, and life goes on, and other things happen. Um, why did you decide to move to NYC? What do you mean? I mean, I'm in Kyiv currently, so I moved from NYC to Kyiv. Thank you, G-Man. Um, I don't really know what to say to that. Like, why did you decide to move to NYC? I went to college. I moved to the US because at that point I was studying I wanted to study psychology, and the US was like the place to study psychology. And then also um and then also I don't know, like I like New York. New York is like a big city. I sort of like Lviv is, so Lviv is one of the like city centers. It's like a state center in Ukraine, and it's a very popular city. Like, there is lots going on, but it's also like, for its population of almost 1 million people, it's literally, we like to call it a huge village, because everybody knows everything. And like, I don't know, it's just like everybody's up in your business. Like, people always talk about things. It's like impossible to stay out of like, it's impossible to like lead a life where people are not like constantly discussing you, because everyone knows everyone. And it's just so weird because it's not a small city. And so I kind of wanted to I wanted to like go somewhere where that would not be the case. And I really didn't, like, I forgot how much I appreciated New York for the fact that it's huge and you almost never meet people that know your friends, or like know each other. Um until I went back to Lviv, and I was like, wow, like, it's been 3 hours back home, and I already met 5 people I haven't seen in like 15 years. And wow, everyone knows what I'm doing. Cool. So yeah, so there is that. And yeah, I love New York for how big it is. Also, Lviv is like a very like Lviv is sort of like that city where, like, you know, you sit with your friends and drink coffee for like 3 hours and just like have a casual, very slow dialogue. No one's like in a rush anywhere. It's really calm. It's sort of like that. And like I am the type of person where like I'm ADHD as fuck, and so like I need a go 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 environment, which is why Lviv for me was always too slow and like it was too little. And New York is just the opposite of that, to be honest. Like I just wanted a big bustling city where, you know, lots of things were happening. Yeah. But Lviv is yeah, I love Lviv dearly. Like it's such a beautiful city, and I think it's like one of the most beautiful cities on the planet. However, could I live in Lviv again? No, I would not be able to live in Lviv again. You would like you'd love Las Vegas then? No, it's in the middle of the desert. It's really hot. You have to like move around in AC all the time, and I don't think people like live in Vegas. People visit, and then people live around Vegas. But like, I don't know. No, Vegas is not my thing. Like, I love New York. I also don't like monoclimate places because as much as I always complain about winter, I need a change of seasons. I could not just live in eternal sunshine. Okay, this has been a very long catch-up session after I said that I'll try to keep it under 15 minutes. It's been 26. So we're going to get to the news. Before we do that, I will say if you have the ability to subscribe to the TikTok live feature or become a YouTube channel member, a YouTube channel member or Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal, if you have any means or ability or desire to support my journalism, it's highly appreciated because it helps me tons and helps me pay my bills and helps me you know, continue bringing you information and bettering my content and stuff like that. So if you do have the ability to do that, I really, 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 really do appreciate that. Also, I did update the Amazon wish list. It's mostly records and some like filming stuff and then stuff from way before that I need to go over. But there is that now too. And for Ukrainian people who are asking me, how did I learn to speak English that way? I speak English since I was 3 years old. I learned it in Lviv, but I learned it from a native speaker. So technically, I am kind of almost a native speaker myself. I don't know how to give advice on this, and unfortunately, I don't teach, and I would be a horrible teacher. And I don't know how to. Yeah, I don't know what to say. That's that. I guess don't put me as like an example or as like a role model to learn English, because I definitely had a lot of advantage since I speak it from a very, very young age. Yulia secretly wants a body pillow of Danny DeVito. No, I really don't. Last thing I want is a body pillow of Danny DeVito. Okay, the mayor of Kharkiv, Ihor Terechov, stated that the Ukrainian military's destruction of Russian strike positions near the border has significantly reduced the intensity of Russian shelling of the city. He added that approximately 11,500 people have arrived in Kharkiv from regions experiencing heavy shelling. Additionally, the mayor emphasized the critical need for Western air defense systems to protect the city. So that's what I was talking about when I said that being able to strike into Russian territory, even if it's just outside Ukrainian territory and Ukrainian border, is incredibly advantageous for us because we can ruin Russian positions, and that prevents Russians from being able to strike our cities as easily. So it is a very, very huge defense move, and it was very, very necessary. Yulia, what is your favorite movie? I don't know. To be honest, like I don't really have like a favorite movie or a favorite TV show. There are quite a few movies I like. I like Guy Ritchie. Like I like his movies. Um, I like Baby Driver a lot. That was a good movie. I like The Kingsman. I like The Gentleman. I don't know. I like movies that are either like well written and fun or movies that make you think. And yes, there is I have a guilty pleasure, and that is Love Island UK. Okay. The White House officially announced a meeting between Presidents Biden and Zelensky on June 13th on the sidelines of the Group of Seven summit in Italy. White House advisor John Kirby emphasized that the U.S. will demonstrate a clear commitment to supporting Ukraine during the G7 summit. Thank you, Tracy. Kirby also highlighted that new steps regarding the frozen sovereign assets of the Russian Federation will be announced at the summit, directing these assets in favor of Ukraine. So Europe is now actually considering not only using the profits from Russian frozen assets, but the Russian frozen assets themselves, which should have been a consideration from the very beginning, honestly, because that's basically reparations. The government of the Netherlands announced an allocation of additional 60 million euro to Ukraine. These funds are intended for the military strengthening of Ukraine and will be directed to the purchase of drones for the armed forces. Hi, Darlene. Madonna posted a video on Instagram in support of the Summit on Peace for Ukraine organized by Ukraine. The singer calls on world leaders on June 15th in Switzerland to achieve peace for all children around the world. Her video shows children of Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, Syria, and other countries suffering from wars. I will play you some of it, but I also don't want, like the freaking TikTok tells me. So I'm not going to play the sound because copyrights, but also TikTok does this stupid thing where if I show something that doesn't have my face in it, it thinks that I'm stealing someone else's content and replaying it. So it shows it as unoriginal content and stops showing the live to people. So there is that. That's helpful, isn't it? Oh, thank you. That's so funny. Safari hat. It kind of looks like St. Patrick's Day hat. Sorry, there was a hat that was it's an equivalent of a super sticker. Madonna is from my hometown. We don't like her since she slandered the city. I mean, I don't have negative or positive feelings towards Madonna, but what I do think is great, no matter whether we like her or don't, is that she has a huge platform. And the people who follow her, a lot of these people are not interested in quote unquote politics, right? So a lot of these people would not have seen these videos or thought about Ukraine or Ukrainian children otherwise. So I really do appreciate when celebrities out of the blue sort of post these videos, because they are attention grabbing. And if these celebrities haven't been advocating for the cause for a long time now, it's sort of like a new audience that otherwise would not have been found that might be interested in the issue or might learn something new from the issue. So I'm not necessarily a fan or not a fan of Madonna, but I do like that she posted that on her story or on her Instagram. And I do think that that's a big move. Together with the Federal Minister of Defense of Germany, Boris Pistorius, President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, visited the 21st Anti-Aircraft Missile Group in the city of Zanets. At its base, Ukrainian defenders trained to operate the Patriot air defense system. Woo! The World Bank has announced a $62 million grant to Ukraine to address housing sector issues, said Antonella Bassani, Vice President of the World Bank for Europe and Central Asia, at the Conference of the Reconstruction of Ukraine in Berlin. We mobilized an additional $62 million thanks to many donors, and plan to conclude thank you, DW, and plan to conclude a grant agreement with the Ukrainian government here in Berlin, Bassani stated. The World Bank continues to support the Housing Emergency Minor Repairs HOPE project, which aids war-affected families. Current funding supports 50,000 families in repairing their homes, with plans to assist another 50,000 by December 2024. Currently, apartment buildings are being repaired in 5 regions. As part of the previously signed memorandum with the Ukrainian government, the World Bank will help attract private banks to provide loans to the housing market, Bassani added. This is actually very, very necessary, because we do have government programs that help you restore your housing. But if that housing is in occupied territories and there is no access to it to assess damage control, then then you're not eligible for the program. And there are lots of like really like shitty situations where people from occupied territories cannot get their housing back or cannot get their housing restored because of this type of situation where like there is simply no access to their housing to check if it's, you know, really ruined or what the scope of damage is. Thank you, DW. That's very, very sweet of you. And hi, Martin. Madonna acts more than a little entitled, bordering on narcissist, but she's pro LGBTQ plus and supports innocent people against genocide and war. So there is at least that. Yeah, I mean, Madonna is like, you know, she's type of like an iconic personality. I can imagine her ego is huge because I don't know a single person in the world that doesn't know who Madonna is, right? Okay. Estonia is transferring short-range Mistral manpads and missiles to Ukraine, according to the country's Ministry of Defense. For security reasons, the exact number of weapons is not being disclosed. Victory in Ukraine will dramatically strengthen Putin's military machine, says the Atlantic Council. I actually interviewed one of the editors for the Atlantic Council. His name is Peter Dickinson, and he's amazing. And that interview is on Kyiv Post, but I would not recommend Kyiv Post, to be honest. Analysts believe that the argument that Putin will not dare to go further if he achieves victory in Ukraine is dangerously short-sighted. A Russian victory over Ukraine would transform the geopolitical situation, significantly strengthening Russia in military, economic, and strategic terms, and at the same time seriously weakening the West. The Russian army clearly did not live up to its inflated pre-war reputation in Ukraine, but it would be unwise to underestimate Moscow's military potential. Putin's command has learned a number of important lessons since the invasion began in February 2022 and has gained combat experience that no other major power can match. A victory in Ukraine will further widen the already alarming gap in military capabilities between Moscow and the West, which is rearming very slowly. The Russian and Ukrainian armies are by far the largest and most formidable military forces in Europe. If Putin wins in Ukraine, he will control them both. Russia will quickly conscript hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians into military service, just as it has already done in the occupied territories of Ukraine. In addition to significant increase in manpower, the Russian Federation will also acquire large stocks of military equipment provided by the West, the article notes. Control over Ukraine would allow the Russian Federation to reintegrate the huge Ukrainian military-industrial complex. During most of the Soviet era, Ukraine produced a significant portion of USSR's missiles, tanks, aircraft, and warships. If Russia seizes and revives military production in Ukraine, this will solve many of the Kremlin's sanctions problems. Economically, the conquest of Ukraine would significantly improve the financial situation of the Russian Federation and strengthen its ability to influence world politics. The Kremlin would receive Ukraine's vast untapped energy reserves, as well as potentially trillions in mineral assets. Additionally, the famous Ukrainian granary would allow Russia to establish itself as a dominant force in international agricultural markets almost overnight, the Atlantic Council notes. If the Russian Federation expands the war further, Western leaders will not be able to say that they were not warned. Putin has prepared the entire Russian society for war and is openly preparing the entire country for a long struggle against the West. The current invasion is an important part of this fight, but it is only the beginning. Russia's victory in Ukraine will create the basis for even bolder acts of international aggression, the experts conclude. I mean, I cannot agree more with this because when people talk about Russia taking over Ukraine, they don't seem to think about it clearly, right? Because taking over Ukraine means taking over the country with everything the country has, which means Western weapons, which means all of our new technology that we've developed. Also, think about like how far-fetched Ukraine is in terms of like digital development. Russia can steal all of this technology and will steal all of this technology. Also, Russia will forcefully conscript Ukrainians to fight their war because that saves Russian lives and they don't have to sacrifice their people, right? Like their chosen people. They can just send us to war that way, wiping out the whole Ukrainian population and just substituting us with Russians, which is what they've done before and have done always. And that's, when we talk about settler colonialism, one of the other things that pisses me off about the like pseudo pro-Palestine activists, which are just like Western teenagers that, pardon my French, are like dumb and don't know what they're talking about, is like they talk about settler colonialism between like Israel and Palestine, right? And then you talk about Ukraine and they just like hate on Ukraine, right? But Russia is a settler colonialist. Like what Russia has done throughout their entire existence is basically send Ukrainians to Siberia and replace them with Russians. And the reason why Ukrainians speak Russian to begin with is because settler colonialism. It's like what they're doing in Mariupol, they're sending Russians to acquire dachas, which is like summer houses in Mariupol. And they literally sometimes, if there are houses that are still not fully destroyed and Ukrainian people are living in there, then Russian people come in and they legitimately evict them. Thank you, DW. They evict them. They come and take over Ukrainian houses where people left because they were able to escape Mariupol and the bombing. They did that in Crimea. They did that in Donetsk. They do that everywhere. That is settler colonialism. And no one uses that word for Russia because that doesn't fit the narrative, does it? Anyways, US to give Ukraine another Patriot system. Associated Press reports. Hi, Chris, and hi, Paul D. And also, someone was asking how Cindy doing. Cindy is doing well. I actually posted about it on Discord because I was getting so many concerned questions about Cindy, which I really appreciate on like every platform. So I figured Discord is probably like where most people are. So Cindy is doing better. I think she ate something and she had a food poisoning, and that's basically what happened. Hi, Mom. Hi, Kremlin Trollbot Hunter. And my mom is here. So, for those of you who haven't met her, she's on TikTok for like a second at least. At least it did notify me that she joined. The publication, citing 2 U.S. officials, writes that President Biden has approved this move. This will be the second Patriot system that the U.S. has given to Ukraine, although the Pentagon has previously supplied ammunition for this system. Yulia's mom. As the chair of the EU, Belgium aims to finalize the 14th package of sanctions against the Russian Federation by the end of the day, according to RMF-FM. A European diplomat reportedly stated that the negotiations would be challenging as France and Germany are resistant to agreeing on a ban on luxury car exports to Belarus. Belarus has become a transit point for Russian oligarchs to continue purchasing these cars, thereby circumventing existing sanctions. Also, hi Brian and hi Ginny. Also, Mom, if you're here. Everyone says hi to you. Orban, interestingly, which I don't believe he's actually going to go through with this statement, but he said at a meeting with Stoltenberg that he basically agreed to not block support for Ukraine and not block NATO decisions. At today's meeting, we focused on ensuring that any operations outside of NATO should be voluntary, and Hungary was given the guarantees it requires, said the Hungarian Prime Minister. Interesting because, so basically Orban was given permission to not support Ukraine if he doesn't want to, and in return for him to stop blocking aid to Ukraine and like NATO's decisions regarding Ukraine, which is wild because like we have a pro-Russian shill in the European Union and everybody knows that. And we cannot like expel them. And so we have to reason with them. But reasoning with them means literally going against like all the principles that Europe has because they are an openly pro-Russian shill, Hungary. And it's just, it's so like annoying that this is the situation and no one can do anything about it. because we have to like, it's not that they have to reason with the rest of the countries, it's that the rest of the reasonable countries of the Western world have to reason with this very clearly dictatorial man who loves Putin uh, and repeats Russian propaganda and works against the EU and the safety and the well-being of the EU, and also brings nothing to the EU but just drains money out of it. Lovely. Russia launched a missile attack on Kryvyi Rih. Currently, 20 people are known to be injured and 7 killed. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, reported today at 6 p.m. So these are the videos from Russia's missile attack on Kryvyi Rih. Also, I saw information about Tu fighter jets taking off in Russia, so I'm expecting that this night is going to be fun. Very, very fun. The US and Ukraine will sign a security agreement tomorrow, according to the White House. Yulia, to user bombers, not fighters. Well, bomber jets, fighter jets, like jets. Okay, Tu jets took off. Would you recommend Kyiv Independent? I really like it, but wondering what you think. Yeah, I mean, Kyiv Independent is an independent Ukrainian news publication. Like, I would say maybe ignore their stories where they're talking. So, like, here's the thing. The problem with Kyiv Independent is that they post a lot of information without like providing context, but that's also the problem with with all Ukrainian English speaking media is like they assume that you know who the people they're talking about are and that you know all the in and outs about them. And that's like one of their biggest problems because they end up basically creating a lot of situations and sort of like creating a lot of negative information for Ukraine because they don't give context. Like for instance, when they quote Klitschko as saying something negative about Zelensky, failing to explain that everybody hates Klitschko and he's generally considered deranged. But he's the mayor of Kyiv, so for you guys, he seems credible. So I would say like, yeah, Kyiv Independent is about as good as like Ukrainian news publications in English are going to get. I really like Svidomi Media because I think it has a lot less ego, but it's a much smaller publication, so obviously they have less journalists, less stories, less production capacity. I like Kyiv Independent for a lot of stuff. My friend Masha, who's like my closest friend here in Kyiv, works for them as their like TikTok producer. So you've seen her on all of their vertical videos. So she's awesome. I really like what she's doing. I think like it's complex. In terms of like my opinion of Kyiv Independent, it's because my opinion of Ukrainian English speaking media in general is complex because I think that, again, there is a lot of stories and very little context. So I guess like don't necessarily put too much credit into like investigations about Ukrainian politicians and stuff like that. Or like also Kyiv Independent to me seems very biased against Zelensky. Like, I will say that. And I don't mean that someone's like paying them for it. I mean that I think that the news stuff is generally like very anti-Zelensky. And that's okay, but it like to me it reads very much, and again the lack of context. But in general, yeah, it's a good publication. I know that didn't sound like I think it's a good publication, but like it is like it's as good as like it's gonna get in terms of like big media outlets in Ukraine. The problem is that like those are Kyiv Independent people are journalists who quit Kyiv Post, and they're very new. They were founded in like October 2021, and they blew up with the full-scale invasion, and a lot of overseas donors were funding them so they could report on the war in Ukraine on the ground. And so they got like I think like or either 2.5 million pounds in donations or 5.2 million pounds in donations. So they're like they have a lot of money and they shut up really fast. And a lot of the people who founded it like really never ran a newsroom before. They were just journalists, right? So I think there is like a thing with egos there. There is just like, I mean, just like in every, just like in every publication, there is a lot going on. And the thing is, like, I'm probably the worst person to ask this question to because I'm incapable of a short answer that says yes. I'm going to tell you absolutely everything that I think. And, like, yeah, they have a lot of very good quality information, but also some of it, like, I personally, like, one of the biggest issues that I have with them and all other Ukrainian publications is lack of context. And the fact that, like, they will not listen to their audience on like, maybe how to better their reporting style or maybe like the things that the audience wants more of because they think they know better what to report on. And that's just like, Ukrainian journalism in general. How about Ukrainska Pravda or Ukrinform? So Ukrainska Pravda is a news aggregator, and so in Ukrainian Pravda is literally Yellow Pages. We all hate it. Like they report the most ludicrous shit on the planet. In English, it just aggregates news stories from different publications. Like I don't think they actually write that many of their own news stories in English. But their Ukrainian stuff is unhinged. Like it's actually unhinged. It's like Yellow Press. We hate it. Yes, Vidome Mark. And then Ukrinform, yeah, I mean it's also a news aggregator. Hromadske is a news organization, but I didn't realize they had an English outlet to it. Was he the guy that said Ukraine should put crocodiles in the Tisa? I'm not sure, but probably that does sound like something he would say. UATV English, that's actually very interesting, and you'll find out why that's interesting in a couple of lives, so like in a couple of days. They pop up in my feed. Also, why do people shit on Kyiv Post? Well, I will tell you, I worked in Kyiv Post for one episode and I quit. Because I think that they have no morals, and a lot of journalists quit from there. And I don't mean the Kyiv Independent people in that scandal. I mean like recently, actually. And I don't think that they are putting out news in good faith. I think that there are two men that run the publication. One is, the editor-in-chief, and one is the like CEO. And they are not there to inform people. They're there to collect their salaries and generate clicks at any price and at any cost. I highly doubt they give the slightest shit about Ukraine. Kyiv Post are government shills. No, they're not. Like, they're not at all. What do you mean? They're not government shills by any means. They're sponsored by like a very rich person who just wanted to own a large newspaper, and he's not necessarily doing anything with the newspaper. He doesn't like dictate topics or anything like that. He just sort of like, as long as he sees that the clicks are there and it seems like the ratings are up, he's fine, and he continues sponsoring it. But then there are two men in charge, and both of them seem to just like their salaries and literally will do anything to continue receiving them with the least amount of effort they could possibly put into it. So yeah, anyways, I don't want to continue talking about it, but like they do a lot with the Telegraph Daily Ukraine podcast. Don't seem like they are as you describe, but I'm no expert. I literally worked there. I legitimately worked there. There is Jason J. Smart, who works for them, a person who consistently praises Putin and Russia, and is like, people think they are that he's literally a propagandist hired by Russia. I don't think he's a propagandist. I think I know he's not a journalist, and no one hires him except for Kyiv Post and some other really like low level publications in other countries. And he writes stuff that generates he writes rage bait, basically. and that generates Kyiv Post clicks. And I quit Kyiv Post because it did not sit well with my morals. Like, I did not want to work there because they wanted me to do things, or like sort of I would have to be someone I'm not, and like pretend to be okay with shit just because I work there. And I'm not going to be okay with that type of censorship. And I am not. Anyways, I quit. Yeah, Kyiv Post is not a good publication. I would not. I would steer clear of that. Like, I mean, there are certain stories that are like, here's the thing. They started posting really good information for a year because there was a new newsroom editor, and his name was Chris York. And they have done so much absolutely vile and really crappy garbage stuff to that man that after a year and a half of like him being demoted 3 times, yet given more responsibility than ever, and his salary being like cut in half, he quit. And he now actually works for Kyiv Independent. He took a paycheck cut again, and he's working like a way more junior position than he used to. But he would rather that than ever step foot in Kyiv Post because of how much they literally killed his spirit. And he's the man who turned their viewership from 300,000 people to 3 million within like 14 months. And he quit. And he was literally the only positive thing in that entire organization. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's so many questions. I like UATV English. Why is it bad? It's not bad. I just said that it's funny that you mentioned it, and you'll find out why quite soon. What are your thoughts regarding United 24 and United 24 Media? I work with, so key thing is I don't work for, I work with United 24 Media. I do Ukraine briefly, short video segment with them, which is like, well, now it's called World Briefly, I guess. So it's like short historical segments. And I love it. I have only positive things to say about United 24, except for the fact that they pay very late. Like, their paychecks are always incredibly delayed. But so the thing about United 24 is that people consider it a government-run media. It's not government-run. Like, yes, it is sponsored by United 24 platform. So there is United 24 Media, and then there is the United24.gov. So United 24 Gov is a fundraising platform that our government created with the Ministry of Digital Transformation. United 24 Media is funded by United 24 Gov. But here's the thing, like, our politicians are not telling United 24 what to post and what to talk about. What they did is they basically outsource it. So they hire Ukrainian creative teams, so like creative agencies and like journalist teams and stuff like that, to who pitch their projects, to run these projects, and to create these projects and to film these projects. So I work with a creative agency that was hired to do Ukraine briefly because they pitched this thing and U24 liked it, and so they hired them. We are not given topics to talk about. We're not filtered. I've never had like any sort of like commentary from the government being like, remove this or don't say that. It's like the only times that there was some sort of like a correction from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it was something, we were doing something about India. And I think it's the Indian embassy actually that was like, can you switch this word to that? So yeah, so the best way to say it, it's not a government run media. It gets grants from the government. That's actually a great explanation, Mashbuck. Yeah, which is common here in the US as well. Yeah, and everywhere else as well. So it's not Zelensky's platform where he just like that he uses to like spread his message. Like, no, it's a platform based on like tons of different Ukrainian crews that pitch their ideas. And I think that the reason why they cover the whole situation so well on United 24 is because these are unrelated teams of various creatives with their own ideas. Okay. The US punished the Moscow Stock Exchange. Dollar and euro trading in Russia is on pause. The National Clearing Center, a counterparty in all of Moscow's foreign exchange transactions, also fell under the new U.S. restrictions. The National Settlement Depository in the Central Securities Depository is the Central Securities Depository in Russia, as well as insurance companies Sogaz and RNPC. Yeah, I mean, that's great, but also this is not going to like, this is not, it doesn't seem like any of these restrictions ever actually affect Russia that much. I've seen like videos of people posting videos that Russian banks are collapsing and like it's so bad in Russia, it's a 1998 again, but that seems to be propaganda. I can't find any confirmation of that. I mean, like it's wishful thinking. I think people jump to conclusions way too fast, and that doesn't help anyone's case. So please don't repost unverified things. Also, speaking of, of rubles and dollars, if you have the opportunity to sign up for the YouTube membership or for the TikTok live membership, or for Patreon or buy me a coffee, or you can contribute something through PayPal. That's always very, very greatly appreciated and incredibly helpful for me to continue providing this information to you on a daily basis and continue improving the quality of my content. Thank you, DW. I also do again have an Amazon wish list because I figured out how to ship things from Amazon to Ukraine. If you know Ukrainian creators who have been struggling to set up an Amazon thing because they think that, because we don't have Amazon, it's impossible. It is now possible with Nova Poshta. So I do have an Amazon wish list, and it should be in my link in bio and the like beacons thing. And most of the stuff on it is, some of it is very old, so I don't really know what's there. It's from my life in New York. And then there are a couple of records, like vinyls, and some things that would greatly help me film. So there is now that. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going to move on from the money conversation because I really, really hate it and it makes me super uncomfortable. But I've been told times and times and again that if I don't continue to remind people about these things, some people are not even going to know that that's a possibility, which is like a YouTube membership or whatever. And anyways, we're going to move on. But yes, if you can do any of those things or want to do any of those things, they're super helpful. And I really, 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 really appreciate them. Okay. Oh, thank you, Paul, for becoming a new YouTube member. I really appreciate that. Russians dig near Vovchansk, according to Deep State. It is reported that appropriate equipment is involved in the works. The project recalled that at least one unit of such equipment in this area was destroyed by the defense forces in May. They also noted that engineering fortifications are the enemy's strong point. Yeah, Russia is digging in near Vovchansk. Vovchansk is the city that they recently leveled and took over. That's where all of the evacuations from Kharkiv were being recorded from. And that's not good because, like, once Russians dig in, it's so hard to get rid of them. One of the reasons why it's so hard to get rid of them in the territories they have been in for a while now, like from 2014, is because of how strongly they're dug in and settled there. This is an interesting one. Weapons supplies to Kyiv will become mandatory for NATO countries, and they will be coordinated by command structures under the leadership of General Cavolli, stated NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg. Stoltenberg emphasized the importance of fulfilling promises made, stating, "There were promises, but they were not fulfilled." That's actually so true. A lot of the promises and a lot of the deliveries that are announced are not fulfilled. Like, it's announced, for instance, that Ukraine is going to be getting 400 units of this, and then countries actually check their stockpiles and they're like, "Oh, well, we pledged 400, we only have 112 working, so we're just going to send you the 112 and act like we send you the whole 400." And then they never do. And so a lot of these aid packages that you hear about, a lot of them are not based in fact, because these are just pledges that you hear of, and then the actual deliveries can vary. A lot of the times, we'll be promised 20 tanks and then only 2 are functional, so we'll get 2 instead of 20. That's a huge difference. The leaders of the G7 countries have reached an agreement to allocate $50 billion for Ukraine The leaders of the G7 countries have reached an agreement to allocate $50 billion for Ukraine by utilizing frozen Russian assets. Woo, that's actually fantastic news. The USA has imposed sanctions on approximately 300 legal entities and individuals from the Russian Federation, Belarus, and China, as reported by Deutsche Welle. Among the entities targeted by the sanctions are the Moscow Stock Exchange, the National Clearing Center, and the National Settlement Depository. Additionally, companies involved in the development of drones, suppliers of microchips, and other products for the Russian military industry, as well as vessels used for the transportation of liquefied natural gas, have been subjected to restrictive measures. The US has also implemented a ban on providing Russia with certain services related to information technologies and cloud services. That's good. I mean, that should really slow them down quite a bit, especially imposing sanctions on China and Chinese companies that are selling to Russia. And that's one of the reasons why so many Chinese marketplaces stopped shipping to Russia, because they wanted to avoid this. Rheinmetall will start production of Lynx armored vehicles in Ukraine, Ministry of Strategy and Industry. The first unit will be ready this year. This one's also interesting. So Armenia decided to exit CSTO, or Russia's knockoff NATO. Armenia and the US have now agreed to elevate their relations to the level of a strategic partnership, as stated in a joint statement by the governments of both countries. According to James O'Brien, the American Deputy Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, the United States has proposed expanding cooperation with Armenia, particularly in the military sphere. Our first joint exercises took place last year, and we anticipate more, O'Brien stated during a meeting of the strategic dialogue between the two nations. Additionally, Washington aims to collaborate with Yerevan on cybersecurity, border security, food, and energy security. He also expressed the United States' support for Armenia's reform efforts, acknowledging the Armenian people's desire for change. So, Armenia has a lot of Russian influence, and that's not for no reason. It's because Russia really made it. So Armenia is stuck in this really crappy predicament where it's near Russia, near Azerbaijan, and near Turkey. And Armenia was attacked many times, and Armenia is weak as a country in that way because their military is not very strong, their economy is not very good, and they're sort of in the middle of nowhere, right? So the Western world doesn't necessarily see them as a desirable partner in any way until now, because swaying Armenia is a very, very good step in isolating Russia. And once Armenia saw that Russia is really not trying to guarantee Armenia's security as they promised they would, surprise, against Azerbaijan, Armenia started separating itself from Russia. Them exiting CSTO is big, though, and that happening right as the US and Armenia agree to become elevate their relationship to partnership. That's a big one. The European Court of Human Rights conducted oral hearings in the interstate case at the ECTHR titled Ukraine and the Netherlands against the Russian Federation concerning human rights violations in the occupied territories of Donbass. Following the oral hearings, the Ukrainian government anticipates that the ECTHR will acknowledge the presence of human rights violations by Russia and move forward to the stage of providing just satisfaction. Canada hands Ukraine the first 4 armored vehicles from a batch of 50 vehicles. First, they will arrive in Europe, where the Ukrainian military will be trained in their use. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and US President Joe Biden are set to sign a 10-year security agreement between the United States and Ukraine during a summit in Italy on Thursday, as reported by Washington Post. They signed it. The agreement aims to provide long-term support for the armed forces of Ukraine, including the transfer of advanced military technologies. However, the agreement is not a formal treaty and will not be ratified by the US Congress, which means that any future president could potentially withdraw from it. Despite this possibility, officials remain hopeful that the agreement will garner bipartisan support and sustain US commitment to Ukraine, regardless of future political changes. The Security Pact is designed to ensure consistent and comprehensive assistance to Ukraine as it continues to face aggression from Russia. By securing this agreement, both nations aim to fortify Ukraine's defense capabilities and reinforce their strategic partnership. But yeah, this is kind of crappy that it's not going to be ratified by Congress, because that means that the second Donald Trump is in office, he's just going to throw that to throw that into the garbage. Also, Brian says, sorry, Yulia, I have no audio or video from you tonight, only chat. Tried refreshing a few times, but still not working. That's odd. Is anyone else experiencing that? On YouTube. I don't know. That's so odd. Switzerland revised the final document on the peace summit, resulting in significant changes beneficial to Ukraine. The updates include explicit mention of Russian aggression. The previous draft did not explicitly mention aggression. The new text refers to the aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine. Territorial integrity and sovereignty. The earlier draft potentially allowed for Ukraine to renounce part of its territory in exchange for permanent peace with the Russian Federation. The revised draft firmly states that sustainable peace must be based on respecting the territorial integrity and sovereignty of all states. Peace formula clarity. The previous draft diluted the peace formula concept, allowing for alternative peace visions like the Chinese-Brazilian proposal, which suggested halting military activities. The new draft emphasizes that only peace proposals adhering to international law and the UN Charter will be considered. Neutral reference in peace negotiations. The revised document avoids mentioning Russia explicitly regarding peace negotiations, instead referring to all parties. These changes align the document more closely with Ukraine's interests and international law, ensuring a stronger stance against Russian aggression and clearer terms for any potential peace discussion. I mean, that's great, but also, why is this even a discussion, right? Like, why was the previous document, why was the previous document not stating these things? You know, it's quite crazy that you have to convince people that, you know, giving up territories is not an option. Calling it the war in Ukraine instead of Russia's aggression against Ukraine is not an option, you know. Russia participating in negotiations is not an option, because that's kind of like, you know, negotiating with Hitler. Like, WTF. Okay, so according to The Guardian, during the 85-day siege of Mariupol in 2022, Russia employed deliberate starvation tactics. The publication cites an analysis by a lawyer from Global Rights Compliance submitted to the ICC in The Hague, revealing that at the onset of the full-scale invasion, approximately 22,000 people lost their lives. That's just a figure that we can confirm, and we cannot confirm the rest that are mass graves in the occupied territories. Following the city's capture, civilians endured days without essential services such as water, gas, and electricity, with temperatures plummeting to minus 10 degrees Celsius. Catriona Murdoch, a partner organization's spokesperson, detailed that the Russian assault unfolded in 4 phases. These included attacks on civilian infrastructure, the severing of utilities, and obstructing humanitarian efforts and evacuations. Legal experts concluded that during the Mariupol siege, roughly 90% of medical facilities and residential buildings sustained damage or were completely destroyed. The analysis indicated that the Russian Federation's objective was to capture the city relentlessly, resulting in significant casualties among civilians. Well, Ukraine, there were a couple of epidemics of diseases that that don't exist anymore. There were a couple of epidemics in Mariupol of diseases that should not exist anymore. People were drinking water like from puddles, and that water had dead bodies laying in it. In fact, I know this for a fact because Lisa, Torque's girlfriend, she was telling me how she was sheltering in a basement with her mom, and they ran out of water, and obviously the only water they could get was like the rainwater from puddles, and that was water that had dead bodies laying in it. And there were so many dead bodies that you practically could not find water that did not have anything like that there. So, yeah, there were quite a few health crises in Mariupol after Russia invaded it. And the health conditions for the people there were horrifying. I can't imagine how they've been living there for 2 years, and I cannot understand the people that have switched to the Russian side. I mean, I get it. There's probably a lot of Stockholm syndrome and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's just like, you know what they did to you. How can you? Great Britain has aligned with the US in imposing sanctions against Russia, targeting over 40 entities, including the Moscow Stock Exchange and the St. Petersburg Stock Exchange, according to the British government. Simultaneously, the Central Bank of Russia has declared that the yuan will replace the dollar and euro as the primary foreign currency in the country following sanctions on the Russian financial sector. The yuan-ruble exchange rate will determine the direction for all currency pairs. Both the dollar and euro are affected, stated the central bank. Economists argue that Russia's trade balance and international trade are now heavily reliant on China's financial stability. Norway will send ammunition worth about 42 million euros to Ukraine, according to the Norwegian government press service. President Zelensky arrived at the G7 summit dedicated to the situation in Ukraine and its continued support from the West. Ukraine and Japan entered into an agreement on security guarantees. As part of the agreement, Japan will allocate $4.5 billion to Ukraine this year and will support the country for 10 years. That's huge. Japan not being neutral, we've talked about it so many times, is huge. Japan signing security agreements with Ukraine is even more huge. The Canadian government has announced plans to deliver approximately 2,000 decommissioned CRV rocket engines to Ukraine in the coming weeks, according to a press release from the Canadian Ministry of Defense reported by the Canadian press. Over the past few months, Canadian specialists have been ensuring the safe operation of the CRV-7 rockets. Canadian Defense Minister Bill Blair will make the announcement at a meeting in Brussels on Thursday. Additionally, Canada will provide Ukraine with 29 Nanook remote control weapon systems and over 130 rounds of small arms ammunition. The CRV-7 was once considered one of the most powerful air-to-surface missiles and remained in service with allies during the Afghan War. The Nanook system, developed by Canadian company Rheinmetall, but German concern Rheinmetall, is a remote-controlled battle station used by the Canadian Army on light armored vehicles and can be adapted for use on various armored vehicles in Ukraine. That is very cool. In less cool news, Ukraine's wheat exports are expected to drop to a 10-year low in the upcoming year, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The report forecasts wheat production in Ukraine for the 2024-2025 marketing year at 19.5 million tons, down 3.5 million tons from last year's harvest. Exports are projected to total 13 million tons, the lowest figure in the past decade. And that is all I have for you for today, unfortunately. And that's a very sour note to end on. It is much earlier than normal, but that's the point because I do have to, do a pilot recording tomorrow or a test recording tomorrow. And so that's a thing. I will be seeing you guys tomorrow evening. And oh, happy birthday, Delaney. Oh my gosh. Putin blames the West when his dinner is late or he soils his pens. Putin blames the West for everything. Putin blames Ukraine for everything. Like Ukraine is to blame for the tectonic plates moving. But okay, you guys, I gotta go. And I will see you. I will see you tomorrow. Bye. Nice to see you without incoming ballistics, right? Okay, bye.